Good morning. Welcome back to our channel, everybody, with Red Bull Coffee and Crime. We have Arctic Fox True Crime on the panel today. Good morning.
Hey, hey, hey.
All right, you guys. So we are doing this over. Um, this case actually goes back 20 plus years ago, and the story has a new relevance today. Um, 40-year-old Rita Polite, who was described as a known, cheerful, and friendly person in the community, who doted on her three kids, Crystal, Melanie, and Michael. She was married to Ed Polite for 20 years, but they would divorce in 1998 and had been going through a very ugly legal battle. Ed was having affairs. He was very abusive, verbally, also physically. And so this battle was very ugly. Um, and the court ended up granting Rita alimony, child support, and a part of Ed's pension and a 401k. Ed was very unhappy with this, and he went to her house, threatened to kill his ex-wife, um, December 1998, and he refused to pay her. This was Wait, so 4 days later, the family's life would change forever. Since they had three children together, at the time the girls were in their 20s, they lived separately. Rita, who had moved into a trailer after the divorce, worked at a local bar to make ends meet. Employers said that she was a very hard worker, she never missed work, and she would often pick up more shifts just to get more money. She was doing her best to give her kids a stable future and not let this messy divorce get in the way of the relationship with the children and the father. So her 14-year-old son, Michael, would split time between the two homes. Michael was not too fond of his dad. He didn't really like the situation, but that's what was going on. The day of December 4th, Michael invited a friend to spend the night, and his name is Josh I don't know how to say Sanjas. He had no idea he would land himself in the middle of a murder investigation. Josh and Michael met up at a general store in the small town of Hopewell, Missouri, where they lived. This is when Michael invited Josh to spend the night. They wanted to play chess, they played video games, and during the sleepover, Rita was actually at work. The two boys, they got bored around 12 a.m. and they decided to go to the railroad tracks near Michael's house. And they set a fire. Uh, Michael said that kids did this for fun in the neighborhood, and Michael actually was known to set fires. Um, the boys then went back to Michael's house. Soon after, Rita returned home from work and everyone went to bed. Well, Michael had asked his friend, would you like to sleep in the living room or you can sleep on the floor in my room? And his friend said, I'll just sleep on the floor in your room. So at 6:30 a.m., the boys woke up to a house filled with smoke. The boys, then frantic, crawled to the front door. Michael is yelling for his mom, and he didn't get a reply. At this time, I can't imagine the panic and fear in this moment, but Michael, he gets up, grabbed the water hose from outside, run towards his mother's room, and he didn't know what he was about to walk into. It would be an image that would haunt him forever. The body of his mother with bloody legs, fire covering her from the waist up. He turned the water on, and Josh ran in to help, but it was then too late. Sadly, his mother had been bludgeoned and set ablaze. As cops show up, fire department, his sisters show up at the same time, and they recall smelling flesh and seeing their brother. in the back of a police car. Um, he was crying. They were asking what is going on, and he told his sister's mom is dead. The police then started their investigation. They would find a footprint behind the trailer where the altercation between the mom and the dad happened 4 days earlier. So Ed was, of course, being looked into. But what he says, you know, he had a substantial alibi and it would prove his innocence. On the night of December 4th, 1998, Ed was working at the local Ford factory. He returned home before 7 a.m. and immediately got the call that his wife was murdered. Ed lived 90 miles from his ex wife's house. So police said it would have been impossible for him to have murdered her and got home on time for the phone call. And I'm going to go over something because it's very weird, that situation. So the investigation turned back and shifted on Michael and Josh. They soon were charged and arrested. Um, well, they took Michael to do like a voice, what is that, a voice stress test, and he failed. They interviewed his friend. His friend says, you know, I woke up, I heard a thud, and I looked over. Michael wasn't in the bed. Um, and so days later, they end up arresting Michael, and he was convicted of second-degree murder in 2002 and given a life sentence. Um, I didn't even know you were off. So, you know, let me pull up the. Um, all right. Sorry, guys. Trying to get the interview part. I'm not gonna read. I'm not gonna read it. But you guys, he did get out. Michael did get out. Um, and I believe it was he got off on parole, right? Okay. Yeah. So he spent nearly 20 years in prison before a new law passed in Missouri that made him eligible for parole. Now 38 and out on parole, Polite tells 48 Hours correspondent Aaron Moriarty, who he believes is responsible for the murder. Michael says there's nothing in the world that anyone can ever do to me that's going to be worse. On December 5th, 1998, oh, he goes and describes it. Hold on. Mm. All right. So 3 years passed with Michael in custody, awaiting trial. And then the prosecution came to him with a deal: plead guilty to voluntary manslaughter, and he'd spend a maximum of 15 years in prison. Michael says he rejected it. Um, Aaron asks, you didn't think about it? And Michael says, no. Aaron, why not? Michael says, because I didn't murder my mother. In January 2002, Michael, then 17, went on trial. His life was on the line. The prosecutors and defense attorneys who tried the case didn't respond to 48 hours calls, but Josh Hedgecorth, the current prosecutor of Washington County where the murder took place, was willing to talk about the case. Aaron asked him what was the most important evidence. And Josh says the scientific evidence, and that would start with the shoes that he was wearing at the sheriff's office. Not only had a dog detected an accelerant on Michael's shoes, according to the prosecution, Later testing also confirmed the presence of gasoline on them, and there was testimony that an accelerant had been used to burn Rita's body. Josh said, and so all of the components together, I think, solidified that he must have set the fire. But Michael had told police that gasoline found on his shoes meant nothing and that he and his friends would often set fires for fun. Remember, that night they set a fire at the railroad tracks. Um, Michael says we all did it. It was in the country. It was a fun thing to do for us. In fact, Michael told police that just hours before the murder, oh, he and his friend Josh used gasoline to set a fire on railroad tracks. Um, Michael told police that he and Josh had set the fire the night before, but the prosecution used that admission to their advantage. They told the jury that the burn pattern on the tracks matched the burn pattern on Rita. Washington County Sheriff's Department, but on the prosecution used that admission as another piece of evidence against Michael. They argued the burn pattern on the tracks. Oh, why is it rereading it? So, how are they getting the same burn pattern? Do you know anything about it, like burn patterns and fires and all that, Arctic? Ah, I lost you again. Did you?
Okay. Now, basically, what they do is they look at the swirls and stuff that are indicated by how the burns took place. But I don't understand how they're saying that the burn pattern on the tracks was exactly the same as what was at the residence. And the further you look into the case and the more the story goes on, there's a lot of things that weren't as they seem. So
Yeah, I mean every burn pattern, every fire you set, it's burning differently, right? I mean, how are they going to say that this fire? I don't know. It's really confusing to me. Um, Jonathan says, I'm like, it's not looking good for him. Linda Dickerson Bell, what they are telling us was that Michael had a problem with burning and that he was the only person that could have done this. The jurors never heard about Michael's problems at school and that threat to his mother. But a witness testified about a disagreement that Michael had with his mother weeks before the murder. It was over money, and he sat flicking a lighter afterwards. But, she was also um, threatened by her ex husband that he was going to murder her 4 days before this.
exactly.
So Michael says it happened, but not in that way the state portrayed it. I was flicking the wheel on the lighter. That's that. So Aaron says, you weren't threatening your mother with that? And Michael says, no. And there was something even more damaging. The prosecution claimed that Michael had actually confessed to the crime during a suicide attempt at the juvenile detention center. Exactly 1 month after the murder, three witnesses who worked there wrote in reports that Michael said, I haven't cared since I killed my mom. But Michael says that's not what he said. He said, I haven't cared since they killed my mom. It's the difference of one word, but that one word carried a lot of weight, and the jury would never hear from Michael because when it was the defense's turn, he didn't take the stand. And leaving the jury with even more unanswered questions was the fact that they were told that Josh, his friend, had been granted immunity. Um, Linda goes on to saying, I kept thinking, I kept waiting. Okay, well, if he's given immunity, then he's got to have something to offer. But the jury never saw or heard from Josh at all. He wasn't called to the stand, and they were never shown his videotaped statement. Michael's sister also weren't called. Um, Instead, the defense hinged its case on the lack of direct evidence. No murder weapon had been found, and despite the violence of the attack, Michael had no injuries, no blood on his clothing. After 3 days of testimony, the case went to the jury.
Yeah,
Um,
and that's the thing. No blood on his clothing, and the photographs of the crime scene show that there was a lot of blood splatter all over the walls.
Yes,
So there's no way that he would have been able to commit that and not have any blood on him.
exactly. I'm gonna show you guys the blood. I mean the pictures, but let's just go over this, what happens, and then we will show you because there's, yeah, like you said, there's no way. Like somebody had to have had blood that did this. You know, it was bad. After Michael was convicted and sentenced to life at the age of 18, he was sent to the Missouri State Penitentiary, once called the bloodiest 47 acres in America. Michael says, being so young, I was a target. I got in a fight my first day there. Dudes were trying to rape me. I was scared to death. I didn't know what to do. Michael said of finding his mother's body burning on the floor of her room. I didn't know who to call. I didn't know. I didn't know what to do. Michael says he became desperate for some sense of safety. So he became a skinhead. Michael says, yeah, I joined a gang, and got tattoos. It was something that he needed to do to feel like he could survive. Um, Michael says he longed to prove his innocence and get out of prison. He needed to hire a lawyer. So he says he asked his dad for help. So, you guys, is the same dad that's kind of a little sketchy. He didn't help him. Michael says, no, he did not help me. And Aaron says, so how did you keep up any hope at all? Michael says, I didn't for a few years. I was a heroin addict. Every time I left my cell, I was looking for drugs. I was just self medicating. Um, that's the way things were until Michael finally found something that gave him hope. 5 years after his conviction, he wrote a letter to the Midwest Innocence Project, and they agreed to take his case on. The organization worked on it for years, and eventually attorneys Tricia Bushnell and Megan Crane and Mark Emerson became involved. Megan says Mike was convicted because he was a kid, pure and simple. He wasn't emotional enough. Trauma doesn't look like what people think it should look like. Bushnell, Crane, and Emerson picked apart the case against Michael. They say it was based on bad science, starting with the prosecution's claim that an accelerant was used to set the fire. Mark Emerson says when the fire investigator came to the scene, they immediately determined it was a fuel fed fire based on just visual patterns, just based at looking at the scene, which at the time violated, violated gold standards of fire investigation. There
Yeah,
has
my favorite is that they cut portions of the carpet and everything out and actually tested them, and there were no traces of accelerant found.
exactly. So, yep, and I'll show those too because they did do that. Um, and Michael Polite's new attorneys, yeah, picked apart the lab testing was done on the carpet samples, and no accelerant was detected. So the prosecution explained that away by saying it could have burned up. But defense attorney Megan Crane says that suggestion isn't reasonable. So they didn't do any kind of testing or anything. Just like they took the dad's word, like, yeah, I was at work at this time I got home. It just really seems strange. Megan Crane says there's no scientific basis for that being possible, that it was just burned up. Aaron, do you believe that the jury believed that in fact there was an accelerant used to set Rita on fire? Mark, absolutely. The main case against Michael was that it was a gasoline fire. And in order to attempt to tie Mike to the crime, the only physical evidence was the gasoline that the state alleged was on his shoes. Michael's new lawyer says that Michael's shoes didn't have gasoline on them either. They say a chemical used in the shoe manufacturing process was wrongfully identified as gasoline at trial. And even the Missouri State crime lab agrees. In a 2020 letter, officials say it is now known that solvents found in footwear adhesives have similarities to gasoline, but that in the late 1990s, this knowledge was not widely known. Could the dogs have been alerting to the chemicals used in the shoes? And the lawyer says, absolutely. The jurors cared about the gas on the shoes. They asked to see the shoes. It was the nail in the coffin. But what about Michael's alleged confession at the juvenile detention center? Witnesses wrote that they heard him say, I haven't cared since I killed my mom. Um, and one of the lawyers says, in the same way we talk about tunnel vision, people can hear what they want to hear. We're talking about one word in a room where there's lots of activity happening. They have a kid in the detention center that they believe has probably committed this crime, right? And so that's their view of him. There is one big question that remains. What about Josh Sansosi? Remember the jury was told he got immunity? And there is videotape statement where he told police he woke up in the middle of the night and Michael was not there. Officer,
Well, now that's kind of a thing too. He didn't say that he wasn't there. He said he couldn't see
couldn't
him
see him.
because he couldn't see through the haze of all the smoke.
Yeah. I mean, and if he's sleeping on the bed and he's sleeping on the floor, I mean, and there's this smoke and it's dark, 6:30, it's still dark. Um, yeah, they took that out of content, I think. Context. I need to wake up. So when the officer says there's no doubt that he wasn't in the bed, and was he anywhere else in that bedroom? Josh says no. Now, many years after the crime, Josh is speaking publicly for the first time about what he says really happened that night. Josh says, I've spent the majority of my life just trying to forget about it. Josh says, I've done pretty good just moving on with it. But I mean, it's still always there. Josh is now 39 years old. He says he's never been quite the same since he woke up from that sleepover at Michael's at the age of 15, found himself in the middle of this investigation. He says he was questioned by police repeatedly for hours at a time. Every time I tell them something, they would be like, no, that's not what happened. This is what happened. I remember telling my mom, I said, they keep saying that I'm lying. I said, I don't even know if I'm telling the truth anymore. In Arctic, this is what we talk about. That's the read technique. And a child is
Yeah, and the thing is we see this in a lot of cases. One of the best examples is the Brendan Dassey case, where they had browbeat this kid for hours and hours and hours without a lawyer present, without his parents present, and that's how they elicit a lot of these false admissions.
yeah, it's definitely not okay. Um, I lost it. Oh, so Josh on videotape, one of his statements, he said, and I couldn't sleep very good that night. I was just kind of waking up. I woke up one time, um, and then officer number two. So there's no doubt. No, it's going back over that again. Josh says he doesn't remember ever saying that. And I feel like if I said that, then maybe at a weak point or something. Michael's attorneys say they have seen this all too often, interrogations just like this. Trisha Bushnell. What we see in Josh's interrogation is the result of hours and hours interrogating, and every other time he has never ever said that was what happened. In a deposition right before Michael went on trial, Josh said that he never sat up from where he was sleeping on the floor, and that it's not that I did not see him in his bed, it's I couldn't see him in his bed. Yeah, you're on the floor. a bed. I don't know how high his bed was, but he's not getting up to look. I mean,
Well, yeah, plus you've got all that smoke in the room and everything else. Uh, I think they really took a lot of what he said and twisted it. And then, of course, Josh is going to take the immunity because he felt like if he didn't, then they were going to try to pin some of this on him. That he saw what they were doing to his friend. So,
exactly, and that's what he says. I thought they were going to try to pin it on me or Bernie, and Bernie being Michael. Um, and he said, well, if they're giving me immunity, then maybe I don't have anything to worry about. And Michael's lawyer says the prosecution was likely trying to get Josh to flip on Michael. And the fact that they didn't even put Josh on the stand says it all. They didn't call on him because it was going to go well for them. He had nothing helpful to say for the state. Um, so we're going to go down. Michael's new legal team was committed to getting him out of prison. They filed court documents suggesting an alternate suspect, Michael's father, Edward Polite. Polite family. If that's true, that means Michael's own father stood by and let his son take the fall for a murder that he was behind. Michael's sister says their father was furious over the financial terms of the divorce. A judge just finalized them 4 days before the murder. And that's when he went, you guys, and threatened to kill her. Um,
he stood up in court and said, "You'll never live to see a penny of that money."
yeah, he refused to pay her. He told her, like, I'm not paying you. I mean, it was half his retirement, it was child support, alimony, you know. Um, and one of the sisters says, the one thing that I remember about growing up with our dad is you don't mess with his money. You just don't do it. She says he had an outburst in the court. And that's when he says you'll never see a dime of that money. Police did interview Ed after the murder, and this is the alibi, where I said his home was more than 80 miles away. Um, but Michael's defense team says investigators didn't look hard enough. And when I heard this, I felt like they were just taking his word for it. So this is new what I'm reading. They didn't at all investigate the possibility that perhaps Ed did this with someone else. And Michael,
And that's what it actually looks like may have happened.
right? Um, and Michael says he believes his dad did arrange the murder and had help. I think he hired Johnny to murder my mother. Johnny is Johnny Polite, Edward's cousin. Oh, see, I never heard of this. So, ooh, okay. Michael's legal team identified witnesses who placed Johnny near the crime scene on the morning of the murder, just as first responders were arriving. What?
Yeah. And it gets better because Johnny, shortly after they had cleared the crime scene, goes and turns in a tire iron to investigators that he claims he found in the closet of the home where she was murdered.
What?
In Michael's closet, supposedly Johnny finds this tire iron and goes and turns it into investigators.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's very suspicious. And that's the cousin. That's okay. Um, Another man places Johnny Polite's truck near the same spot that another witness says he ran into Johnny on the morning of the murder. And in an affidavit filed by Michael's team, the man says he saw the truck just as emergency vehicles were coming down the road. Former investigator Tammy Nash says he doesn't remember hearing that Johnny Polite had been seen that morning, but she does recall something that happened in the days after the murder. Once the crime scene had been released, Tammy says somebody came into the sheriff's department and said that they found the tire iron um, or tire tool or something in the closet. Aaron asks, whose closet? Tammy says, Michael's closet. Police records show the person who found that tire tool was Johnny Police. Wow. Aaron asks, could you have missed that in your first search? Tammy says, no. Aaron says, are you absolutely sure? I am positive. I did not miss that. There seems like a lot of shit was missed, and they just wanted to pin this on him and get over it. Like,
Well, I don't think they did miss the tire iron. I think that Johnny went and turned that in and said he found it in Michael's closet to try to frame Michael for the murder.
yeah, that's insane. That's Tammy says that somebody placed it there. Tammy went and retrieved the tire tool from Michael's closet. It was later ruled out as the murder weapon. Aaron, do you believe that tire iron was put in your closet to set you up? Michael says, I do. Johnny and Edward Polite didn't respond to a 48 hours request for an interview.
Imagine that.
Neither has been charged in the case. It's been years since Michael and his sisters have spoken to their father, but they say they did ask him whether he had anything to do with their mother's murder, and he denied it, of course. Um, so, you guys, he got a second chance. Trisha says it's hard, it's real hard here in Missouri to get these convictions overturned. It's a battle. Michael Polite's legal team was shut down by appeals court at every turn. Um, Michael and his sisters kept up hope that one day he would be freed, and in 2021, there was an unexpected development. A bill passed in Missouri giving juvenile offenders convicted of serious crimes a second chance. Michael says it gave me an immediate parole hearing. Michael went before the parole board asking for his release. Michael said, I told him I was innocent. I told him this is why I'm innocent, and this is why you should believe I'm innocent. It worked. On April 22nd, 2022, Melanie and Crystal brought friends and family and a change of clothes to the Jefferson City Correctional Center. Melanie says it was a great day. Crystal says it was a dream come true, really. On that day, Michael Polite walked out of prison incarcerated at just 14 years old. Now he's 38. Michael, when he got out of prison, he says, where's my lawyers? It's overwhelming to see all the love, all the nights sitting in my cell, wondering what it would be like to be out here and having this moment and have it finally come true. It's awesome. Yep, it's finally here. I am free. Michael also says he felt his mom's presence when a bird flew over his head. He looked up at the sky and he says, hi, Mom. She's always in my thoughts. She's always in my mind. And everything I do and everything that I'm processing today is guided by her. On April 2022, Michael Polite left prison doing one of the things he enjoyed most before he went in. I'm leaving here the same way that I came in here, riding a bicycle, justice for Rita, he said to a cheering crowd. So he said it felt good. It was the best bike ride in the world. Following his release, Michael moved in with his sister, Melanie. He started getting those reminders of prison, his tattoos covered up with new art. He also found a job as a carpenter and got his driver's license. He says being out is not enough. You know, he says that his criminal record says that he's killed his mother and he wants to clear his name and he wants justice for his mom. Um, so he said it could just happen. And it might just happen because Josh Hedgecorth, the current prosecutor in the county where the murder took place, has filed a motion asking for Michael's conviction to be overturned. Josh says, to me, it all always comes back to the science. Hedgecorth agrees with Michael's attorneys that the scientific evidence used to convict Michael is problematic. So yeah, I mean, he talked about his truck, right? The mom's truck.
Well, and I think that the fact that you've got the new prosecutor that said that there are issues with the evidence in the first trial. I think that probably helped him during his parole hearing, because the prosecutor, when you listen to them talk, it honestly sounds like they don't believe that Michael is guilty of this crime.
No, I mean, and if it is, or whoever it is just out here free. Justice was never really served. I really hope that something happens. I'm reading now that his father says, I'm grateful and happy Mike is being released. Now, about me, I did a dozen or so interviews with the law. I did a lie detector test, a blood test, a DNA test, and fingerprints. I cooperated 100% with the law. I don't know what else I could have done. My place of work was checked out. My coworkers were interviewed, and I have a couple dozen witnesses that placed me 85 miles from my ex. That's all I have to say. You're a reporter. I'm sure you can verify what I've said. I will discuss this no further. Thank you for at least getting my side, shared Ed. From what we could tell, Ed Polite is currently in his 60s and he lives in Hazelwood, Missouri. He shared that he has devoted his life to Christian teachings since his son was convicted. He prefers leading a private life away from the public scrutiny, though it is unclear if he is still in touch with his children, but we now know that he's not because they don't want anything to do with him. Um, I mean, and they didn't do a rape test either, right? So that's a
Yeah, I
very
don't
weird.
think they did that.
I
Of
mean,
course, the
imagine.
rape test kits are problematic too. We've got rape test kits sitting in evidence lockers across this country that are still waiting to be tested years after the fact. So
True. Uh, I these cases they break my heart because it's just he wasted his life. I mean, he was so young, but hopefully he can find some peace. Hopefully he gets his life together, keeps it together, and keeps fighting for justice for his mom. Um, and that's it on this, you guys. I mean, I hope there's an update. I hope that they are still looking.
I hope his conviction gets overturned, and they
Yeah,
need to take a hard look at this Johnny dude, because multiple witnesses saw him at the scene of the crime, leaving the scene of the crime, and then um, there were people that he approached after this happened and said, I need to know everything you know about what happened to this woman, blah, 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 everything you know about this crime. So, I mean, they felt intimidated by this guy because, um, and they were friends of him. So,
yeah, that just uh, they need to look into him ASAP. Um, but yeah, I mean, hopefully, like you said, it gets overturned. They really look into him. Even if he wasn't hired or asked by the father, it could have just been him alone. Was it the he was on the father's side, right?
yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know, but that is the story. I of Rita Polite, and I thank you for joining panel. I have to take Sophia to the dentist, so that should be fun. Um, have you decided yet if you are going to go to?
If I do go, it's going to be this evening, because I haven't even had a chance to do anything on my channel today at all. And I've got at least one case that I have to put out for that PI that we were talking about.
Mhm.
So I'm going to do that video, if nothing else, today.
Okay, well, keep me updated. Um, I gotta be there at 1:30, so I'm gonna get ready and stuff. But I'll have my phone. Let me know what you decide to do.
I will.
All right. Well, thanks for joining as always.
Well, thanks for having me.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you guys again. Please like, please share, please subscribe if you are new here. Um, we, sorry, I'm eating candy. We will have more videos out tomorrow. This one didn't go as well as planned because I didn't know that I couldn't play a 48-hour video with an interview from Michael. But that is okay. You guys can go look up 48 hours, put in Michael's name. It's something that you guys should watch. I definitely am so glad that this man is out of prison. Thank you guys for watching. Like, subscribe, share, and everybody have a great day. We will see you later.